Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. The Dominica Parliament passing electoral reform legislation, which does not make all sides happy. The opposition has been clamoring for electoral reform, but when a bill did go through Parliament, they took objection to some of it, saying that the bill did not go quite far enough. A protest erupted in Dominica last week over the situation. The police were called in, and we saw some very violent images coming out of Dominica. Joining me now on the program is Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit of Dominica to talk to me about the key points of the bill and also the protest, which we all viewed that was happening in his country a few days ago. Prime Minister, finally, welcome to the narrative. I finally got you here.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm so happy to be finally on with you. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure to have you. So, electoral reform, it's finally happened, but some people are very displeased with the bill, or at least elements of the bill. Let's start with outlining the key objectives of the electoral reform bill and how it aims to strengthen Dominica's democratic process.
Well, I think we want to put this in context. As you know, we've been talking about electoral reform since 2013. We went to Parliament with a comprehensive set of legislation in 2017, May of 2017, and there was a protest action outside the Parliament. The security barrier of the police in 2017 was breached, and the protesters almost got into the Parliament. And I decided then to stand down the passage of the legislation, which would have brought in national ID cards. It would have brought in a confirmation exercise, which would clean the voters list of the persons who should not be on the voters list. We fast forward to this, we engaged Sir Dennis Barron in 2020 to assist us in seeing that we couldn't get common ground among the political actors in Dominica. So Dennis made some recommendations, and we engaged ourselves in a comprehensive set of national consultations carried live on all medium. We engaged political parties, civil society, individuals, and at the end of the day, we came up with what we believe would have been a consensus document. Some of the things that are included in the legislation are voter ID cards, mandatory voter ID cards. Secondly, the issue of cleansing of the voters list by way of confirmation. So you would have to present yourself to the Electoral Commission with a government issue ID and to indicate to them who you are, and they would confirm you will be on the list. This in itself would allow for cleansing of the voters list, because a lot of the people who they say are dead or on the voters list would have been removed from the voters list by virtue of that process. Then the issue of Dominicans living overseas. Now, our laws, our constitution doesn't allow the government or the parliament to remove anybody from this list by way of, except if you're dead. And so the original recommendation was to send the Electoral Commission to countries and cities where there are large concentrations of Dominicans to get them confirmed. We were following essentially the St. Kitts model some years ago. The opposition objected to that. We in the Labour Party in the government were very strong on this. Eventually, we decided to give in on that. So the legislation allows for anyone who wants to get confirmed would have to travel to Dominica and present his or herself to the Electoral Commission for confirmation. So you have this. Then you also have very comprehensive amendments to the laws relating to the Electoral Commission, where greater powers and autonomy are given to the Electoral Commission in this of its mandate. So they're very comprehensive piece of legislation on this. And the whole idea of ensuring that we improve transparency and the conduct of our elections, mindful that we have always had free and fair elections in Dominica, mindful that every political party who has won elections in Dominica, and every individual who has won election in Dominica has always done so freely without fear at all. But in everything, there are times when you have to improve on the systems. Laws have to be amended. Systems have to be improved. There are international best practices that one has to follow. And this is what we sought to do, and this is what we did in Dominica. All of this, we sought the advice of the OAS. We sought the advice of the Commonwealth, who reviewed the legislation first and who were satisfied that they were meeting some of the desired objectives of the reform that we were proposing. And during the consultation process, we had the presence of the OECS, CARICOM, and the OAS, and the Commonwealth witnessing the consultations across the country. And so there are things in the legislation which I personally didn't agree to. But in the process of advancing the systems, you give and take. And one has to understand that legislation is not something that can be perfect. We will not always have everything that we want in it or should be in it. But I would believe that the legislation which went to the Parliament and approved unanimously by the Parliament. Because one has to differentiate, my friend, between the opposition, the parliamentary opposition, and pressure groups outside of the Parliament. Everyone who sat in Parliament on the 19th of March 2025 voted in favor of the legislation. They spoke freely, they spoke uninterrupted during the debate. They share concerns about what they like and what they did not like in the legislation, and that's what we do. As Prime Minister, sometimes I stand in Parliament and say, well, I do not like what the government is doing or what the government should be doing. That's part of democracy. But at the end of the day, everyone voted, and interestingly, that the two members of the opposition spoke, or the opposition spoke, elected, and you also had the deputy political leader of the United Workers' Party, whose party was outside of the Parliament protesting, but he sat in the Parliament and voted in favor of the legislation. I heard excuses by the leader of his party why he did this, and he's new to Parliament. You've been sitting in Parliament for 2.5 years. You can't be new. You ought to know the rules. You know what voting is. I do not know how a grown man sitting in Parliament doesn't know the difference between yes and no. And to say that
I think what they were saying, Prime Minister Skerrit, is that he thought the bill, which was a bit confusing for me as well when I got the explanation, but that he thought the bill was being presented in parts and he would get the opportunity to vote no on those aspects of the bill that himself and his party were in disagreement with.
No, but he's wrong, and the explanation you got is wrong. I saw Dr. Fountain on your program, and he gave you false information. Every bill was taken independent of each other. So if you go to the records of the Parliament on Wednesday, the Attorney General is the one who presented the bills on behalf of the government. The Attorney General presented 3 separate bills. The first bill, which is the real bill where the contention resides, where the opposition was seeking to stop, was the House of Assembly elections bill. So this is where the registration of electors bill, they wanted to stop. But this is the bill they voted on. This is the bill where the contention reside, and this is the bill which was voted on. And so the free bills were not taken all at once, and the free bills were not voted on all at once. In the Parliament, in our parliamentary democracy, you can vote by the ayes have it, or you can ask for division. The Minister of National Security asked for division on one of the bills. And it is in this bill, which was debated, that has to do with the registration of electors bill. This is where the contention resides. And this is the bill which the deputy leader of the United Workers' Party voted on. So the explanation which you got is really wrong. There was not a vote on all 3 bills. No. There was a vote on one bill. The 2 others were passed by the ayes have it, meaning there was not a division was not requested, and therefore there was not an individual vote. Okay, so they're completely wrong on this, and the member had an opportunity, if he wished to state his individual vote by rather than saying ayes have it. And even when the speaker asked those in favor, there was no opposition. There was no opposition to the 2 other bills which were passed by way of a request by the speaker. So even when the 2 other bills came in, that member and the members of the opposition could have said no and could have made a loud no to overcome the ayes or the yes of the government, which is usual practice in our parliamentary democracy. But there was complete silence, and they had an opportunity to object. They had an opportunity to ask for division, which they did not ask for division. They supported it. And when you read the explanation given by that member, the senator, the deputy leader of the political party, he said to his party people who were calling for his resignation that he felt that there were some good things in the bill. That is that that was to say the United Party have been asking for years. And he feels that we should go ahead with those bills because they have made good progress in achieving the objective of electoral reform.
But Prime Minister, one thing that was missing from the bill, though, according to the opposition, and they've strongly criticized the bill for not addressing campaign financing. Why was this issue excluded? Was it excluded?
Well,
and do you see a future commitment to legislating campaign financing reforms in Dominica?
Sure. Now, at no time during the entire discussion on electoral reform, the issue of campaign refinancing was on the agenda. When Sir Dennis made his report, he recommended that we should look at campaign finance. So that was never on the agenda. We have said, and I have said on behalf of the government, that from an aspirational standpoint, yes, we can and we could give consideration to electoral reform, to campaign financing. But that is a highly technical piece of legislation, which would unduly delay the implementation of other far-reaching positive movements towards the modernization of the electoral process. As a matter of fact, I had even raised that issue at the CARICOM level. And there was a suggestion among colleagues that we may want to look at this from a regional standpoint because there's no OECS country that has campaign finance legislation. And outside of Jamaica and Barbados, which is loosely implemented, there's no campaign finance legislation in the Caribbean. Okay? And so we felt that we needed more time to look at this technical document. And because you're not going to pass a legislation because you want to pass it and sound good, and it's not going to be properly implemented. And interestingly, one has to understand, sometimes political parties ask for things that when they get it, they don't want it. This draft legislation you're talking about, the campaign finance legislation, would have a negative impact on smaller political parties, When you really look at it objectively, and setting aside your personal motives. So we are not opposed to campaign finance reform. What we're saying is that this requires way more time to give consideration to, because it wasn't originally part of the consideration. But as you may be following politics in Dominica, my friend, the opposition in Dominica, they ask for something, right? If they believe that I am for it, then they will go against it. If they believe I'm against it, then they'll ask for it. So classic case in point. They said they want Dominicans living overseas to come to Dominica to get confirmed. We gave it to them. They're not in support of it at all now. So they ask for some things, and when you give it to them, they're not in support of it. So we're not opposed to this. I think these guys are looking for a red herring. What they wanted was for the issue of electoral reform to remain an issue in Dominica so that they can use this against a government. Now, a government that has been in office for quite a considerable amount of time uninterrupted, it is easy to use the issue of campaign reform, electoral reform, and government not being transparent and so on to cause there to be a perception that elections are not conducted free and fair in Dominica, which is not true. So they wanted this because elections are due by the end of 2027 constitutionally, the date, at least the calendar date. You're going to need about 12 to 15 months to effect the reform agenda. So what they would like to do is to delay the process until 2027, and you will have enough time. And you know what they will say? Oh, Skerrit doesn't want electoral reform. And when I say, but but you guys were protesting. You wanted to storm the parliament, and I wanted peace. Then they would say to me, as it said in 2017, but you are the majority. You have 19 or 21 seats. What would stop you to pass it in parliament? We don't sit in parliament. You sit in parliament. And so I believe that what we implemented in Dominica was far-reaching, is comprehensive, and I dare say it is legislation that other countries in the Caribbean should look at with a view to having it even as uniform legislation within the OECS and the wider Caribbean. It's far-reaching legislation, I dare say. But what this opposition people wanted to do in Dominica, at least the opposition outside of Parliament, is to give Dominica, is to stain Dominica's name, to give the people out there the impression who do not know the background and the context of what we're debating in Dominica, the impression that this place is unsafe, that there is mayhem in Dominica, and there's chaos. Because they have been looking for years for the police to overreact and for the police to kill someone on the streets of Dominica and to use that and to parade Dominica in the international and regional arena.
Do you feel, Prime Minister, that the police, because I was looking at some of the video, and of course, looking at video is different from when you're on the ground. Had I known things would erupt, I'd probably fly to Dominica, but I was looking from here. Do you feel like the police overreacted, though? What is your reaction to the visuals that we saw of your police engaging with the protesters?
Well, I mean, my friend, I can tell you from where I sit, the police exercised tremendous patience and tolerance. The police never acted until the protesters acted. The protest was illegal because they never sought permission. The police set this aside. You protested and you're allowed to protest, and even if they don't get permission, once they are peaceful and they go about not interrupting daily work and what have you and so forth, it's fine. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think when the law says you need it, but I'm not going to hold somebody against someone for not having permission. But the police exercised tremendous patience. The protesters tried to breach the police barrier. And if you know Dominica and you know where they were protesting, close to the Fortune Hotel, it is right next to the official residence and offices of the President of Dominica. The parliament boundaries the residence of the president. There were protesters who were seeking to breach the perimeter wall of the president's residence with a view to going from there and into the parliament, because their intention was to go to the parliament to stop the parliament. Okay, to stop the passage of the bill. The only way you can stop the passage of a bill is by storming the parliament and disrupting it, taking the mace away, and not having the parliament proceed. That was their intention. It was not to protest and to make noise and to do what you do outside the parliament.
Was that a stated intention?
That was a stated intention. That was a stated intention. And if you look at the videos, there were people encouraging them to breach the barriers and let's go inside. Let's go inside. And if you would have seen some videos also where rocks were being offloaded from vehicles. Rocks, right? And rocks started to be, rocks and missiles were being thrown at the police. And this is when the police started, as far as I was told, the police reacted. But interestingly, protesters did not get injured. The police got injured. The protesters didn't get injured. Nobody was sent to the hospital. So at the end of the day, one cannot say the police overreacted. The police had to maintain law and order, and so forth. I also saw, I believe, on your program and maybe on another program where it was said that I brought in the RSS. The RSS was never in Dominica. We placed the RSS on standby based on the previous actions of the opposition when their protests descended into chaos and destruction. As a matter of fact, there was one year, I believe in 2017 or thereabout, where they set fire to several businesses owned by government supporters in the city. And so, knowing of their intentions, we placed the RSS on standby. but the police was able to manage the situation, and there was no need to bring the RSS in. So there, at no time was the RSS in Dominica and part of the security apparatus during the protest.
Was there a previous occasion when the RSS was brought in?
The RSS was brought in 2019.
Yes, because I got the impression at the time that that is what was being referred to. I do recall the reference being made. I believe it was on my program, but it seemed that they were referring to.
No, I think they were referring to last week. They were referring to last week that the RSS was in Dominica, but the RSS wasn't in Dominica. Even in their letter to Prime Minister Mayor, what is the chairperson of CARICOM, they referenced that.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Now, with ongoing opposition to the bill, the opposition outside of the House, as you said, because this bill was voted on unanimously in your Parliament on the 19th. Are you open to further amendments? Because you said there were some aspects of the bill that you yourself did not like. It would be interesting to find out what those are as well, Prime Minister. But are you open to any more further amendments, or do you consider the matter to be settled?
Those I didn't like are those that I gave up on. So I gave up my ground on. So, for example, we were very firm on having a national ID card because we felt that it is better to spend money on a national ID card that you can use to travel in the OECS as a single space. You could use for other activities. And if somebody has a card that they have multiple uses for, it is more likely that they will keep it in a safe place rather than a card that you use once every 5 years. And so we're arguing for a national ID card. The opposition was demanding a voter ID card, and we gave this up. Okay? We gave this up. And we decided to go the route of a voter ID card. And there are other issues. But of course, you pass legislation. This is why even after you would have gone through the process of debate, you go to a committee stage. Even at the committee stage, you make changes to the legislation. And so if tomorrow morning that there are things that were overlooked and it needed to be changed, then certainly. But our view is that the legislation which we took to Parliament were comprehensive in nature. They address the issues that were of concern to the country, and will cure whatever issues people identify within the process, and would enhance the electoral system, the transparency of the system, and a greater accountability. So I believe we have better laws in Dominica now, today, than we had on the 18th of March. Very comprehensive in nature, very progressive in nature, and laws which meet international best practices. And we allow the Commonwealth and the OAS to review those laws, those bills, and they're all satisfied that they meet international best practice. And so if tomorrow morning, next year, whatever it is, we believe that there's some amendments to be made, sure, that's what Parliament is there for. So we're open to this, but one cannot say that we have not met the objectives. And if the opposition was honest with themselves and honest with the population, they would articulate these things. But just to tell you, my friend, we have to sometimes we need to go back to history, sometimes contemporary history. After the 2017, when we made some changes to the laws that went to the Parliament, the then leader of the opposition, Lennox Linton, proclaimed that the government made changes to the laws and that was to the effect that he's satisfied with them. He's satisfied with them. And this is what it is. So these guys, they will change their position because at the end of the day, they really did not want or do not want the legislation to pass. And that's the truth in Dominica. And I can tell you, I am 100% for the electoral reform. And I'm so happy because we wanted to ensure that the commitment we gave to our citizens, the commitment we gave to our international partners, that we remain true to our word. In Dominica's leadership, we don't play games. If we tell you something, we keep to it. Well, what I say to you at night, that's what I say to you at day. And we were very, very committed to electoral reform. And I'm happy that finally we were able to go to Parliament and pass the law. And I'm even happier that we got it unanimously passed. with everybody having all the faculties in place. There was no drunk person in Parliament. There was no person who voted under duress. And you go to the videos of the
But
Parliament, and you will see that
can't say that for sure. You can't say that for sure, Prime Minister, that there were no drunk people in the Parliament. You cannot say that for sure.
I can say that for sure. There were no drunk person sitting in the Parliament voting.
But you were not there.
I
Were
can
you
say that for
there?
sure.
Were you at that session?
I know I wasn't there. I followed intently. I saw everything that happened in the Parliament. It's carried live, so I could follow. And if you look at when the deputy leader of the United Party supported, I mean, he said so emphatically, as well. You could see that he was so excited to vote yes, because he was very happy about it, and it's very good to show on your program or others a video of him voting. So nobody can give an excuse. The problem we have in the opposition in Dominica is that Thompson Fountain is a very weak leader. Very, very weak leader. And there are two factions or three factions within the Workers' Party. One led by Thompson Fountain and one led by Lennox Linton. And what Mr. Fountain is seeking to do is to curry favor with the extreme arm of the United Workers' Party led by Lennox Linton. And unfortunately, Dr. Fountain has been led a very dangerous tunnel. And this is why they will remain in opposition for a very long time to come, because they're just not connecting the Dominican people.
One government in power for too long, unless the alternative is absolutely a mess, is never really a good thing for democracy, I am told, Prime Minister. But let me ask you.
No, but I want to answer. But who taught you that? I mean, the Constitution, people vote, and I'm not sure what people define as too long. If somebody's married for 25 years, they renew the vows. Yeah. People get married. People get 50 years, they renew the vows. They look to 100. I don't know anybody out there who is 25 years old looking to kill himself or to die at 25. Let's be real. People get a job in the public service at 18 years and they retire at 65. So what is too long? People vote.
Well,
people exercise their franchise.
Those examples that you give, Prime Minister, can measure up. But let's move on to. There's a question that I want to ask you about the claim that the opposition continues to make, that the Dominica Labour Party, when elections roll around, you can afford, because you have unlimited war chests for campaigning, they say, is able to plane people in that tips the scale way in your favor. I know that political leader Fontaine on my program talked about some margins of victory, which didn't ring true to me, though, in terms of by how much they lost the seats. At the time, I didn't challenge it because I could not recall the numbers in that particular instance. But the essence of this is that they're saying that you're bringing people into Dominica much more than they can afford to bring in, and that is causing the integrity of the elections to be interfered with. How do you respond?
Well, this is not true at all. I mean, money don't win elections. People who know me, my friend, I work extremely hard. I engage myself in retail politics. I go to the communities, I do house to house, I engage people at various levels and so forth. And I have always practiced a policy and a program of putting people first. For me, politics is about people. These guys, politics is about looking for a job. For me, politics is about people. And this is what my party has espoused. And this is why I always keep my party, to ensure that the heirs are down on the ground and they stay among the people. And I will chastise any parliament, any minister, publicly and privately, who will not stay close to the people who voted for them. This notion about the Labour Party having more money than any political party or having the means, that's not necessarily true. The difference between me and these guys in the opposition, Thompson Fountain and others, is that when they get money for campaign, they keep it for themselves. When I get money for campaign, I spend it because it was raised for that purpose. There's a difference between them. But the notion about bringing people from...
On what basis do you say that, Prime Minister, that when that campaign funds meant for the party kept for themselves? What does that mean?
Because I know benefactors who have said that to us. And they don't spend the money on what they raise it for. You hear them raising money on radio programs that their own supporters asking them for accountability. They cannot account for the money that they raise on the radio programs. Their own supporters are asking. They go on Facebook, go and listen to the radio programs. People are asking, look, I gave money where's the account of it? Even for the last protest, there is money to pay the buses to bring into down to the city. People are asking, look, you raise money. How did you spend the money for on March 19th? The point of the matter is,
well, failing to give
political
account
parties
does not equate to using it for themselves, though.
Well, that's what people who gave the money are saying, and we see it every day. People believe that money.
But that's hearsay and third-party conversation, Prime Minister.
You've had in the Caribbean political parties who in government who have lost elections. Donald Trump won. Kamala Harris spent $1.5 billion in 100 days, and she lost. So money don't make you win an election. Their governments have been sitting in governments for many years, and somebody comes along and wins. Look what happened in Grenada. Nobody thought that Dickon Mitchell would have won the election as an unknown in the politics, compared to Dr. Mitchell, who has been there for a long time and a formidable political character in not only in Grenada but the Caribbean. They got beaten. So money don't make you win elections. What makes you win elections is your connection to the people. And this is where the United goes back. I'm not even advising them.
Do you import voters? Does that happen? Does the DLP pay airfare for people to come to vote?
Every political party in Dominica has engaged in that practice. This is
Does
part
the DLP do that, sir?
Yeah, of course we do. Yes, I'm saying every political party, DLP is a party. I was part of the Freedom Party in back in the days. The Freedom Party brought people in. I know the United Party brought people in, for a fact, and I know for a fact that the Labour Party has brought people in. So the notion that they're trying to give that only party that has done so or is doing so is Dominica Labour Party is a false narrative, and they should not come with a narrative and have a false narrative.
So when Dr. Fontaine came on my program and said because I challenged him and I said, is it because you can't afford to do it that you have an issue with it? And he says, oh, well, even if we had the money, we would never do that.
That's not true. But Dr. Fontaine got elected as the opposition, as the leader of the United Party, while working in Sudan. He wasn't resident in Dominica when he got elected as the party leader. The Workers' Party has had a candidate.
Does the Dominica Constitution recognize political parties?
No, but look at the principle of it. If you're saying that you're not supposed to vote in Dominica, but how do you end up being a leader of a party if you reside overseas? In the 2014 election or 2019 election, they had a candidate from a resident and working in Antigua who took leave from work, came down to contest the election for the Workers' Party. She lost, and the next day she went back to her job in Antigua. So let us not let these people come on your programs in the region and lie to the people. Every political party has done so. And in our case, in large measure, it's a natural thing for people to come. The majority of people will come on our behalf. We don't mobilize them, they come on their own. And in many of the constituencies in Dominica, there are no overseas people coming. I don't bring any overseas people to vote in my constituency, neither in Portsmouth or Cottage or Collio or Maho or Granby or Petite Savanne or Roseau Central, where my wife runs. People will come to vote. Canada territory. So the reality is, the Labour Party has the majority support in Dominica, and this is how we win elections. And the margins are very much comfortable margins. So when I hear them say we won by 100 something votes, 5 or 6 seats, this is not true at all.
No.
So every political party, my friend, brings people in to vote. Every political party has done so and continues to do so.
If you had to speak to the people of Dominica through the narrative right now to ensure and to assure them that there is transparency and to ensure that there's public confidence in the electoral process, I give you the opportunity now to say so, Prime Minister.
Well, I don't have to speak to Dominican people about this. They know that. They see it. You go to a polling station on election day in Dominica. Every candidate has the right to have an agent inside the polling station. Inside. and he and every voter needs to declare his name openly so that into the full hearing of the agents. The agents have an opportunity to object to anybody voting. They may not prevent you from voting, but you can object to having them voting.
Yeah.
And in a village in Dominica, everybody knows everybody, and you will have an agent that knows everybody who is coming to vote, at least in large measure. So we've always had free and fair elections in Dominica. But how could it be that a political party contests an election, the seats that they win during that election, they consider to be free and fair, but the seats in the same election that the government or the other party wins are not free and fair? How do you explain this? The same system, the same laws, the same opportunity, but you win 4 or 5 seats, great, we won. The government, the other party wins 15, 18 seats, they stole elections. Cannot be. And every election I have contested as Prime Minister from 2005 have been challenged in the courts, and the courts have even adjudicated. So not only have people demonstrated their franchise and support for the Labour Party in the majority, but the courts have also looked at evidence presented to it by the opposition and declared the elections to be free and fair and within the laws of Dominica. So I can say to you, I can say to the region, because Dominicans know, because if the majority of Dominicans were opposed to the legislation of the Parliament, spending 3 weeks mobilizing people and you only end up having 140, 150 people on the streets, couldn't be that the others are not in support or in support of your actions. Rather, why didn't you have 5,000 people on the streets, or 8,000, or even 1,000? You had 150. After you paid bus fares for everybody, you provide them with meals, okay, and you had 3-4 weeks of mobilization. You raised monies, or significant amount of monies, to mobilize people, and only 140 people showed up. So the majority of Dominicans are in support of the legislation, and I can say to you that we've always had free and fair elections in Dominica. I don't know how one can steal an election in Dominica. I don't know this to be a practice.
The election is only stolen when you lose.
That's what it is.
Prime Minister.
And then we were in opposition for 25 years as a Labour Party, and we took our blows, and we regrouped, and we're here today as a formidable political movement.
With a complaint here and there of the elections been stolen.
But we've never complained. We've never complained in opposition of elections being stolen. Never. Never.
Prime Minister, about 2 years ago or so, when you won again, I was on a program with you where you were being interviewed, and you said that this was going to be a halfway sort of thing. You weren't going the full 5 years. You're halfway there. What's happening next? What's happening next with Roosevelt Skerrit as Prime Minister of Dominica?
Yes. I ask myself a question. I ask myself the same question all the time, you know.
Let's answer it today.
Yeah. Yes. The party has asked me to whenever I'm asked a question, that I should refer that question to the executive of the party. So I will defer the answer to the president of the Democratic Labour Party, Ambassador Lanton. But we'll see how things go. You know, I have a commitment to the country and a commitment to my party, of course, a commitment to myself. I have sacrificed and made my entire adult life, you know, at the service of the people, and it's been a good run. It continues to be a good run, and at some point, like everything else, one has to make a determination of what is life going to be for him for the next years. So when that time comes, then certainly I will make a definitive position on it. But for the time being, I'm the leader of the party. I was reappointed at our conference in November of 2024, and at this stage we're taking it one day at a time through Jesus. and we'll see how it goes.
So it appears that the position which you held was that you would transition midterm is no longer set in well, it appeared to be set in stone when you spoke before, but it's now on shifting sand.
Well, I won't say shifting sand or set in stone either, but it's a matter that's under constant review. As it is now, my commitment is unwavering to the party and to the country, and at the appropriate time, those final decisions will be made. But for the time being, I'm focusing on so many critical public sector investment projects we're working on: international airport, the marina, the geothermal, our continued efforts towards housing the nation, significant public infrastructure works, and so we are focusing on getting those implemented and to help grow and expand the economy of Dominica and to create more sustainable jobs for the young people of our country. And we're well on track for this. And so we are focusing on some things now, and at the appropriate time we'll focus on individual circumstance and situations. But now we're looking at the greater good of the country and of course the greater good of the Labour Party.
Okay, Prime Minister, I want to thank you so much for joining me on The Narrative. I look forward to having you back so that we can go a bit more in depth on Dominica's economy and what's happening there. I know you have this remarkable housing program that you're doing for your people. So to talk a bit more about that and how does Dominica do it? Free housing and housing at that level, that quality and so on. And to talk a bit more about what's going on in Dominica outside of electoral reform. I look forward to having you back. Don't be a stranger. Know that you're here.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you. Now that I have the public invitation, I'll certainly take advantage of it. I want to thank you for having me on, and I wish everyone well, and I wish you continued success with your profession. And of course, your objective question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Faria. Speaking though with Roosevelt Skerrit, he is the Prime Minister of Dominica. We were speaking about the electoral reform, which his country has begun to put in place, a bill unanimously passed in that country's parliament, meeting with opposition by the opposition, although the opposition within the parliament voted in favor of the bill. More when we come back.